So I'm going to call this video proof of a higher power or something to that effect. I could call it proof of God, but that would be misunderstood because most people think of God as an anthropomorphic being, a sky god, a human-like father figure, and of course that's ridiculous. But the word God has been used historically in a more abstract and intelligent sense, such as how it's used in deism or pantheism. And I do consider myself a pantheist. So this is why I don't like the term atheism, because in atheism, the question of whether there is a higher power is left unanswered. And I get the impression that most people who call themselves atheists subscribe to the notion that there isn't a higher power, that there's just this, that somehow we're going to understand the entire universe in terms of what we can detect about it, in terms of what's reachable by human intelligence, and there's only this, nothing more. And we see that view extrapolated in theories like, the multiverse. And it's like, we have to answer the problem of why everything is so ordered in this universe. So we get around it by inventing many, many universes that all exploded outwards into separate dimensions, if you like, at the Big Bang. They all had different laws of physics. It was all very random. And the vast majority of them were dysfunctional and ended very soon after their creation. And the one that we're in happens to be the one where the conditions were just right to support things like solar systems and life. It's the old, it's like the face in the teacup or the face in the tea leaves. You see patterns that aren't really there, or it's like a very sophisticated expression of that old argument that you sometimes hear in theism, in monotheism, that if you if you get enough monkeys with enough typewriters and enough time, like an infinite duration of time, sooner or later one of those monkeys turns out the complete works of Shakespeare by sheer chance. It feels like that kind of an argument. If you just give yourself enough universes, one of them will work. I don't buy it. I don't. I think it's coming from the wrong place. It's coming from an aversion to any kind of acceptance that there's a higher power. But we actually don't need to feel that aversion, because there is proof that there is a higher power. And that proof comes from mathematics, right? And the best example of this, I think, is the number pi. 3.14, etc., 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 also expressed as 22 over 7. But whether you express it as a fraction or a decimal, in both cases it's an approximation of the true value of pi. Pi is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. And it can't be bound. It can't actually be given a value. It just goes on and on and on. And I think at this point, several trillion values have been uncovered of the actual decimal value of pi. Several trillion decimal places it's been worked out to. Not a single one of those decimals is random, and yet you can't pick out a repeating pattern in it either. It's not like 3.333333, it's always going to be 3, a third, or 0.33333, it's a third of 1. Pi just keeps on going, and you can keep on going forever. It's what's called a transcendental number. Now, there's a word you don't hear often talked about in physics, the idea of something being transcendent. And yet in mathematics, we call pi a transcendental number, with good reason, because you can't get to it here within space-time. That's a really amazing thing if you think about it. There's something real, you know it's there, and you can't get at it. You see? Am I going too far in saying that this is proof of a higher power? No. Now, someone argued against me in the past on this matter, and they said that there's no such thing as a perfect circle in nature. Therefore, there's no such thing as the actual value of pi, right? But that's kind of getting the cart before the horse, because it's like saying first came the cube and then came the geometry that makes up the cube. You see, it's the other way around. First there's the geometry of the cube, and it's those mathematical laws that are holding the cube in the shape that the cube is, in the same way that it's mathematical laws like the number pi that makes up the circle. In other words, every imperfect circle that you find in nature is utterly dependent on the fact that the number pi is a reality. You see? I mean, this fills me with a real sense of the profound, but I feel that it's very hard to get people to realize just how big a deal this is. There is something here. It's real. You can get the edge of it, but you can't get the whole thing. But you know the whole thing is there, out of reach. It's so out of reach that if you gave yourself an infinite duration of time, you could not get to the end of it. Therefore, there is something that transcends the whole notion of time as... Oh, I'm losing my words. The whole notion of time as something that can be bound. There must be the unbound, whatever that is. There's an aspect of reality that we might call the unbound, the infinite. It's absolutely real. See, people think that the notion of infinite regress is a problem. That's usually applied to creation. So you start with something and then you ask, where did that come from? So you jump to something else, typically to God. But you just jump to something else, and then you have to ask, well, where did that come from? And you jump to something else. Where did that come from? And you jump to something else, and on it goes. It's an infinite regress. And people think that that is a problem. Like it shouldn't be. It's not a problem because you can actually demonstrate that there is an infinite regress in nature, and it's right there in the number pi. You just go deeper and deeper into it, and it goes on forever. And I mean a literal forever. It's transcendental in nature. And yet every one of the digits within it is absolutely real. No matter how deep you go or how much time you invest in it. And by time, I'm not talking about a human life. I'm talking about trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of years. Right? Something that we can't even imagine. Time will just keep rolling out those digits of pi. They come from somewhere. They come from the infinite, from the unbound. They come from that higher power that is above everything that is tangible here in this. So it's like everything you can see and touch is like a subset of the infinite. A subset of the unbound. And to me that's wondrous, because I recognize that this higher power is not something I ever get to understand, yet I have an implicit trust in its reality. The kind of atheism, if you can call it atheism, that I subscribe to is one that feels a deep, intimate connection to a profound mystery at the heart of everything. And I wonder how many atheists feel that. Because I have a feeling that it's more of a kind of a dead view of reality than one that is hopeful and vibrant. And you see what I'm getting at here? Pi proves that there is a higher order to reality. It is an order that you cannot understand, but it is an order that you are absolutely able to trust. That this game we're all engaged in down here isn't without some kind of ultimate reason, but you can't get your hands on that really. But it's there. Doesn't mean there's an afterlife, doesn't mean any of that stuff. It just means that everything is working the way it's supposed to, and it's not an accident. It wasn't the case that there were millions and millions of universes and you happen to exist in the one that worked. There is something much deeper in play. And that's why I prefer the term pantheism over atheism. Pan means all, theos means God. It's just the idea that God is everything. God is not a character. This is all divine. This is all a subset of the divine, and we don't know what the divine is. It's just higher than this. Okay? Just a quick note before I go. I'd like to let people know that I'm now on Patreon, inviting sponsorship, and the link for that is down below if you want to investigate that and see what sort of benefits you can get from supporting me in that way. All right, folks. Take care till next time.